is it the dog days of summer, Charles?
It is indeed, and we've only just gotten started. We're not even to July.
When are the technical dog days?
The dog days, in theory, I always thought were in August, but
that's what I thought. Yeah. Like the end of August, super humid, but it is hot as can be today in New York City.
Or as Donald Trump would say, hat, spelled H-A-T, hence the hat.
Well, right. People love the hat for sure. And then you were also confusing Chinese state-owned media. I mean, Epoch Times the other day, having them think that you were Mark Crispin Miller.
That was pretty funny. Yeah.
So we're not in the dog days of summer, but it is crazy hot in New York. We're broadcasting now, Charles. You know, so many of the Crowdsource the Truth internet properties have been getting slammed. I know that Tucker Carlson and Brett Weinstein were talking about this yesterday, internet censorship and all of that. But people who are looking for Crowdsource the Truth videos keep emailing me remarking that it's extremely difficult to find us. People can watch on rumble.com/user/CS the truth. Whoops, that's interesting. And people have been doing that. They really seem to appreciate Rumble. I want to thank everybody who's watching us on Rumble. We got about 9 people there right now. It's a good live streaming platform. The other thing is, Charles, you know, we've got Crowdsource the Truth 5. That's an option for people. Mm-hmm. And I also want to let people know about the Sunday with Charles YouTube channel. It's a new channel that I've created. I don't want people to think that it is you who is in control of that. I'm not trying to deceive anybody, but this is a place where the live streams are simulcast, and also people can go back into our legacy playlists and see some of the first videos that we did. So there's a lot of people who are sort of traveling back in time with us, Charles, to see what was being said, you know, years ago.
Well, I would say categorically that had we been talking really, I guess it was 4 years ago, right around now, and you had said, Charles, what we're going to do is spend the next 4 years doing hundreds of 2-hour podcasts about this, and you're going to enjoy doing this because we're going to have so much fun together. I would have said, more pot.
You would have channeled Tina Forte and said, "The fuck out of here."
Exactly. Just because it's such a daunting thing to think in terms of that many hours of podcasting. When you look at, I happen to be a fan of NCIS and some of these long-running shows, and you go back and you look and see how many of these 1 hour, and really they're all, because of commercials and station breaks and stuff like that, it's more like 44 minutes typically for an hour. So they have only done, I don't know how many hour-long shows, and we've done more than 300 2-hour-long shows with no commercials. Now, perhaps we could have spoken less, been more succinct, but I think particularly with I could have spoken less. But
people like hearing what you have to say.
But I think particularly as we did the walking around shows, and now the traveling around shows, that is helpful as we go back into time, and because a lot of what you and I talk about, I am patting both of ourselves also on the back. It's pioneering stuff. We're out there ahead of most of the investigative media, because most of the investigative media, even people like John Solomon and others who I regard highly, most of those people are not very good when it comes to math and finance and understanding the economic implications of the scandals that we're covering. So we rush out ahead on both fronts. It takes a little while for the rest of the pack to get up. Generally speaking, sometimes the rest of the pack is ahead of us. But when you go back and you look at what we were saying years before others now say, what we were saying was controversial, and some would say conspiracy theory, a crackpot, and this and that. Now it's like...
Yeah, you're channeling Dershowitz.
Well, I'm just saying. But now people are saying, of course, everybody knew that the Clinton Foundation was a fraud. I mean, it's old news.
Right, and gain of function and everything. But I mean, with regard to approaching you and saying, how about doing 300 or 400 podcasts? You know the ancient Chinese adage about how to eat an elephant, right?
Slowly, bit by bit.
One bite at a time.
Right,
yeah.
Right, but I think it's been good experience. And frankly, the topic, the more we dive into the topic, the more we see that it's not an elephant. It's what is it called? It's a pod of whales, and it's
a herd.
Herd of elephants. Yeah, I mean, it's many herds of many elephants across many continents. And what we're going to try to do a little bit of today is maybe fly further up above the ground and try to put this all together in different elements of it into one cogent summary. So here we're talking about you, me, and Joe E. And I've got to say, I really, though it's funny, I don't loathe the Biden family as much as I loathe the Clinton family. I really loathe the Clinton family.
Yeah.
I mean, those people are just unrepentant grifters, one worse than the next. Maybe there's some hope for Chelsea's kids, but I wouldn't be taking that bet on the long side. So,
no.
But with regard to Joe, he's kind of like a character. Who are those guys who are the guys who the Wedding Crashers?
Well, it's the same guy, Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn, but that's who plays Dupree, who Joe is today.
Right. I'm just saying, Joe. That's Joe in real life. I mean, you're probably going to have at these expensive schools, and maybe who knows, the University of Delaware is going to have a special new under the mantle of the diversity curriculum. They're going to study a prototypical white privileged douchebag male, Joe Biden.
Exactly.
If you look at him, this guy. He affects himself as coal miner Joe, when in reality he is actually to the manner born Joe, and has managed to go to where he is today, being as incompetent as it is. He's more incompetent than it's possible to be in each role that he gets in. I mean, as senator, I think it was the former defense secretary, Robert Gates, who was a Republican, though he served in the Obama administration. He, I believe, gave a lengthy speech saying that Joe Biden was wrong in every major and minor foreign policy decision the guy ever had. So let's make him chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, then vice president. You're sitting there, you're expecting a guy who's really good on the inside in Washington, D.C., knows how to speak the lingo, and they get Obama charade across the line, Obamacare, which is not care, and it's not even insurance. They get it across the line. They expect words of wisdom. He gets up in front of the audience. He goes, "This is a big fucking deal."
Joe Biden said that?
Yeah, live on camera. This is a big fucking deal. Like
wow.
Anybody you might meet you don't really know, you get up and say something like that. You would expect from a consummate Washington, D.C. insider, "Gee, Mr. President, Every president since Franklin Delaware Roosevelt has tried to do something this serious. You're going to be congratulated for this reason and that reason and not this reason. Not, this is a big fucking deal. Can I have a whiskey?"
Well, it's a chocolate chip ice cream. But Charles, with regard to the University of Delaware, I've already started to put together the curriculum for douchebaggery in modern America, and the central point of study is going to be Joe Biden.
Well, it's interesting. Clarissa's father was, I think back then he was chairman, but chair of the American Studies Department at the University of Delaware.
Oh.
And
well, we could introduce the idea to him, but I would guess he's probably not alive anymore.
No, he's very much alive.
Oh, really?
He's a good man. He's actually, through all the troubles I had with Clarissa, he was very supportive and he's a very decent human being. But so I have had, the University of Delaware is not in Wilmington. It's in a smaller town that'll come to me, Newark, Delaware, and it's pronounced Newark down there. And when I was going there in the late 70s, the best restaurant they had was a Friendly's. I mean, it was not like it was. There might have been something I missed, but it was not. It wasn't great. And we get on. Those were the days of the what are those things called? The
Fribble?
No. For the when you're driving around, Breaker 19, the
CB radio.
CB radio. So for some reason in the Bushman's car they had a CB radio, and they had. Clarissa was then 22, and she had she's eldest of 6, and youngest was like 10 or something like that. And we're all going somewhere in the car, not with the parents, and they decided to experiment with this CD thing. And it turned out that there were all these truckers on the road explaining to each other where the nearest road stop whorehouse was.
Wow! Oh my God!
Over the air.
I thought they were telling people where the cops were.
No, they were saying, "Go over here." There's a really this little kid is saying, "What's a hooker?" Anyway.
Wow. Well, Charles, what is it, would you say, about this image that is probable to excite my attention, having never seen this film and
Well, I just think,
there's something in it.
Well, what I would say to you is, as a kid growing up, I always had this idea that being president of the United States was the highest possible, most honorable position that you could get, and that you wanted to get in that role a person and a family of considerable accomplishment and high moral character and stuff like that. And, since about 1988, fuck that. I mean, that's not been the role. The role instead has been, I think, to have a succession of people who will do the bidding of the corrupt globalist swamp.
Yeah. Starting
with HW, you could say Reagan before that if you want to, but I think really starting with HW and then continuing, of course.
Not LBJ?
Well, you could go that far back, but at least LBJ had the pretense of fighting an actual Cold War, right?
Creating, did you say?
No, fighting. No, that predated him.
It was created already. You're right.
Yeah. So, I mean, but at least there was a credible threat of the Soviet Union and communist China,
Yes.
and at least communism was on the ascendancy around the world and did pose a threat to Western Europe and other places. You could credibly say that you were pretending to do something that might benefit
pretending
the United States.
I agree with that.
But when you go into we've done this data before, this UNCTAD data, and you go back, it's pretty good, very good actually, back to 1970, and you look at it as I have been doing now for several years. You see that just on numbers, to put it, there's a lot of basketball, I think, playoffs going on now. If you had a team of, America was, let's say, the winning team, and you look and you say the average height is a 10-foot rim, the average height of the player is 6 feet, 8 inches, and the average amount of body fat on each player is like 7%, and they're really fit, and they've got a great record of free throw percentages and all this kind of stuff, and they pass the ball, whatever. You look at all that hard data, and then you say, now we really got to worry about these folks in the Soviet Union. They're on average, they're 3 feet tall, they're 5 feet wide, right. They're drunk.
600 pounds.
They don't know where the basket is.
Unaware of what a basketball
is. And they're
is.
not going to be wearing any clothes. It's
right.
just, so the numbers were just so stark back in 1970. The United States was, though we had a lot of problems, and though the camp, as Rush Limbaugh liked to call them, the campi, the campuses, we're all seething with revolution here and revolution there. And we had raging inflation starting in 73 and stagflation and all sorts of other problems. Still, even with that, the economic conditions inside what is now Russia, what is now China, and what is now other rising nations, the economic conditions in India, for example, were dire.
Yeah.
I mean, people literally, I've said this before, and it's not with disrespect that I'm saying this, but people in India and in communist China were delighted. The equivalent of Christmas rolls around, and it's not duck, and it's not this. It's, how I get a dirt sandwich, I get a whole sandwich. I mean, there was just, people had nothing really to eat. They were thin. They were sick.
Really, truly third world,
fourth world.
Yeah.
I mean, you had people who I tell a story, and it's absolutely a true story. In 1993, I was I went out to London, and then to Hong Kong, and then to Bali for an extended 93, yeah, an extended Christmas trip. My eldest was just about 5, and my youngest wasn't yet 1. And so we leave the youngest in Hong Kong, and we go out to with a nanny, obviously, not by herself.
Like, here, it'll be fine.
Yeah. No,
Couple bucks.
With a nanny, and then we take William into communist China for a day trip on a hovercraft thing, or like one of those fast ferries, and we're in Guangzhou, the old Canton, the way it was spelled and pronounced, and it's like 2 or 3 days before Christmas, and it's freaking cold, and we go into one of those gift shops, and that they steer you into on a tour, and there are all these American and foreign tourists gawking around and looking at the bric-a-brac, and William then was this tall, and decides that he wants to go elsewhere. So he starts running underneath the legs.
Told me this.
Underneath the legs of these various people in the store. And you can't just throw people aside chasing your kid. So he goes out the front door of the store. He makes a hard right and then goes into an alley. And we chasing after him. And I look ahead, and there are all these kids in communist China naked in
What?
December playing soccer.
Wow.
You know, I mean, I'm not saying maybe that was just a weird.
Wasn't it cold?
Yeah, it was cold. It wasn't freezing, but they were just in rags and naked playing in the streets in '93. Now, and that's not a poor city.
And 93 is not that long ago.
Right. And that could have been an aberration. It could have been the special Chinese holiday where naked kids play.
Naked Soccer Day.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. It's, of course, everybody knows it's Naked Soccer Day, Charles.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm not saying, it could have been just a freak thing. But the point is that from a pure economic standard, the United States back in 1970 was extremely strong compared to these, on its own, then relatively compared to these supposed threats even stronger. So that by 88, 89, when we have Tiananmen Square, when we have the Soviet Union, the Berlin Wall coming down and all that kind of stuff, H.W. Bush was played a hand that was extremely strong. And what did he do? He took the cards, vomited on them, put them into the toilet bowl, took a dump on them, and lit it on fire. I mean, what we had in 89 and could have continued going through, we wouldn't have, if he played his cards correctly, we would never have had a Clinton presidency. We would never have let the Communist Chinese Party and the People's Liberation Army develop the near stranglehold that they now have today in 2021 over the production of so many vital things like drugs, computer chips, so many different things that are essential to the proper functioning of any national economy are today hostage to, it's not like a rival. This is a party that is celebrating 100 years, going back, I think, to the Russian founding, but they're celebrating 100 years of communist rule now. They are not sitting there saying, we want to cooperate with the United States. They want to crush us like a bug.
I think it's working.
And yeah, you could say it has been working reasonably well. So if you go back to 1988 and then back to 1970 and you look at the trajectory of the U.S. economy, it was actually really good. You do that in dollars. You could norm it to gold. You could norm it to something else. But just start with dollars because every economy in the world, that UNCTAD stuff is done in dollars back to 1970. And beginning in 88, the trajectory started slowing. And then under Clinton, it was pretty fast. But from 2000 to 2008, it really slowed, obviously, with the Gulf War, with the various wars under Bush and 9/11. Then Bush, this is a phrase that I learned from my Southern friends. I mean, on the way out the door as president, he drops a gigantic turd in the punch bowl, lets the whole financial system nearly blow up right before the election in 2008, 2009. So Obama inherits a mess. And in order to score his presidency success, the buffoons who pass for analysts say, well, we're not going to go back to the trajectory that was 1970 to 1988. We're just going to allow us to pick the lowest point of the Obama presidency in 2010, let's say, and then draw it up from there and say, look at the percentage increase. We got back to where he used to be in 8 years. That's fantastic. But
wait a second, Charles, because we'll get back to what about Dupree was interesting to me. How do we explain this photograph if George Bush and Bubba Clinton are rivals? He looks like he's his mentor. He's at this barbecue with him. They're drinking Mountain Dew. What is going on?
I don't know.
I think you and I have a different evaluation.
Uh-oh.
That's some kind of emergency alert, probably due to heat.
It's an emergency alert. We brought up the connection between Clinton and HW.
It's going to say
your lives are now going to be canceled.
Heat wave or something like that. But anyway, I don't know. I think that I have a totally different assessment of the relationship between Bill Clinton and George Bush than you do. I also have a totally different assessment of what George Bush's intentions as president were than probably most people do. And I think from his standpoint and what his plan was, it's been succeeding like gangbusters.
Well, if you go again into that UNCTAD data, the data in particular, what it does is it takes every economy in the world and also groups all economies together to give you figures for the world total and for regions of the world, and it allows you to deconstruct economic data. So the number that people always hear about is GDP. And this data can deconstruct it and say how much money did households spend in total? How much money did people invest in total? How much did they export? How much did they import? But you want to go on and talk about something else here?
No. This is the first time I've ever seen this photo, and it's back again with George McGovern and Bill Clinton. So I don't know really too much of anything about George McGovern, but wasn't he the guy that they were trying to get information on during Watergate when he broke into the office? Allegedly?
Well, Clinton was McGovern's manager in, I thought, Texas.
It's just interesting. I don't know much about George McGovern, and I don't want to deflect you from what you were talking about, but I don't trust Bill Clinton. I don't trust George H.W. Bush.
Well, if we can, can we go into the UNCTAD data just for a second so I can...
Sure. Where do I just go? UNCTAD?
In Google, yeah. UNCTAD... UNCTAD and data into Google.
Oh, you don't want that? Looks like they found Sasquatch on there. Statistics? Data.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
John
statistics
territory here.
Yeah. Let's see. Maybe... Yeah, UNCTAD stat. That's what you want. Data center. All right. And okay, then you look at here, output and income. Then we look at gross domestic product, this one here, third down. Okay. Now, this is, as you can see here, this is an enormous file. Right?
Yeah.
So we look here, here's gross domestic product for the world. Okay, everything. In 1970, 3.4 trillion. You're going way too fast.
I didn't mean to do that. It's behaving strangely. Hang on just a second here. Oh, we're screwed up now. There we go. Okay.
No, now you want to go to the top. Yeah, there. So here's the world total right here in this. Oops.
Oh, this is a very difficult website to navigate, Charles. Sorry. Okay, here we go.
So I hope it doesn't move. This shows, if I could just help people orient themselves, 3.4 trillion in total world GDP. Consumption expenditure, 2.5 trillion. That's what we spend, what households spend and what governments spend. Households, 2, government, half a trillion, 2 trillion and half a trillion for total consumption of 2.5. By consumption for households, that's clothes, food, medicine, your daily expenses. And the truth is that too many people in this supposed capitalist world don't have any capital. They spend, they earn, and they pay their taxes, and what's left over they spend on themselves, and they don't save anything.
I think I know some of those people.
Exactly. Well, that's most people. On top of the spending, you then have this concept of gross capital formation. What that is the businesses, to a lesser extent, the governments. They put up factories, they put up hospitals, they invest in machinery, they increase the inventory in their businesses. That's the capital investments. Then you export. And for globally, in a given year, exports have to equal imports, right? There are imbalances nation by nation, but for the world in total...
someone's exporting it to someone who's importing.
And there can be a little bit of change,
Stuff falls off into the ocean.
Yeah, but it should be equal. I mean, there can be wastage and spoilage and pilferage or whatever, but it should be roughly equal. So when you look at this, you say, all right, but way back when, this is the total gross domestic product for the world. You can hit this individual economies, and remember that $3.4 trillion number, individual economies, if you hit that link there.
Where is it? Okay. It's so small.
Okay, this then, you have enough memory in your computer. So if you scroll down to a bit, you'll get to China.
I just don't understand how the scrolling is working. Okay, is that working? There we go.
Yeah, here's Albania. You're going to have to go. I think...
Is that working?
It's going down, but...
I can barely see it.
I can see it. I'll tell you when to stop, when to scroll more slowly. Belgium, Belize, Bermuda. Okay, slowly. So back. We're at Congo Democratic Republic.
Oh, I see it.
China, yeah. Colombia. We're going to get China. Keep going. That's just Taiwan. Not Macau, Hong Kong. It's the next one. So remember I told you the total GDP of the world was $3.5 trillion. Here's
down.
Yeah, it's a little bit higher up. Let's see. For some reason,
it's super difficult to navigate this. I think if we downloaded it and put it into Excel or something is what they want you to do.
All right. Well, we could just take it as read, and people could do this at their convenience because I didn't want to turn this into a big statistical exercise. But you have at your fingertips the ability with this data set to look at every nation of the world, the evolution of the economy of every nation in the world from 1970 to 2019. And what it shows is that China has been spending an absurd amount of money on capital formation. Now, let's translate that in.
What is capital formation?
That's putting up plants, that's putting up highways, that's putting up roads.
Fake cities.
So if you have a fake country, China, where there is no real, and America for that matter, where there's no real stress testing of economic data, where if G says that we spent $5 trillion in capital expenditures, you don't raise your hand and say, but, because by the time you get to the T, the bullet will go through your forehead. You don't say anything, right?
Right.
But going from the ridiculous back to the particular, here in China, in I think 17, they claimed they spent $5 trillion on CapEx, and I think $6 trillion by 2019. $6 trillion. Now remember, this is the entire country of China. The figure is likely inflated, and that idiot bartender wants to spend $93 trillion in America alone on the Green New Deal, right? So this gives you a sense of how stupid she is and how little she learned in life, and in particular that wherever she claims she may have gone to college. So when we talk about spending a lot of money on, let's say, real estate, Jason, what crops into your head immediately?
I don't have enough money to buy real estate.
Clinton Presidential Library. It's the same idea on a much smaller scale, right? If you have a bunch of politically connected insiders in a place like Little Rock in Arkansas, where the big money around Little Rock in Arkansas is very happy to be in for the grift, really interested in getting a lot of tourism going through Little Rock, because if they do that, the money will spill out of the visitors' pockets into the coffers of the rich people. You'll find yourself in an analogous situation to the situation in China, where you want to get all kinds of morons in the multinationals and the UN or whatever falling all over themselves to invest money in China, a place where nobody really knows where that money goes. And the insiders have an opportunity in China to do exactly what the Clintons did and the people around the Clintons did with the Clinton Foundation. This thing, by the reckoning of people like me and real accounting experts, this double-wide trailer overlooking the muddy river here in Arkansas probably actually cost, back when it was put up by 2004, in the order of $85 to $100 million. But on the books and records, which are, quote, official, but never actually audited and not in compliance with American accounting procedures, they state that somebody spent $165 million on this double-wide trailer overlooking the swamp. And what that means is that by allowing these fake accounts to circulate in the public domain, you're memorializing a theft through 2004 of about $65 million. So if the real thing cost 100 and you stole 65, that means that in this particular grift in Little Rock, you were able to steal 65% of the true cost of whatever was put up. So you stole 65 on 100 million. Now go to China. If you're spending $5 trillion and you do
similar
model, right? You say you're spending
a lot of money.
That's trillions of dollars. So how do you get that money out of the country? What you do is you claim that you're exporting. And
what though?
Right. You say that that something went out of the country that cost $2 trillion when it really cost $1 trillion. And the person buying that stuff then sends $2 trillion, $1 trillion back inside China, and $1 trillion into Switzerland. So, I think if you push really hard on the figures that you see in UNCTAD and the figures that you could get out of China, and if you had the kind of leverage that Donald Trump did have as president, instead of chuckling about the cost of NATO and the headquarters and stuff like that, instead of letting James Comey
buy Star Wars toys.
Yeah, or come over to the White House before January 20th or early on with meet in the White House with Trump and others, instead of being intimidated by James Comey, you would have said, look, I love you, James. Why don't you come? There's a special seat for you at the inauguration. Don't worry.
Don't mind that trap door. And the plastic, we're just repainting.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't you get there a little early? We want to make sure that you have an unobstructed view of
the firing squad.
Exactly. and you had the guy. I mean, I would have had that guy fired during my speech. He would have been. Yeah, I would have said
at the end of the inauguration speech.
No, not the end.
Where's Jim?
No, not the end.
Stand up. Come here.
That's like it.
Get the hell out of my office.
No.
I have a serious question for you, Charles, because you know a lot of stuff about different kind of construction projects all over the place. And it's interesting because now that I have been to this Clinton library, I feel that I have somewhat of a different relationship with it. I'm not joking. I mean, from being there and walking around and looking at the stuff on the grounds, and I've noticed some things about it that I maybe didn't notice before. And I just want to ask you about it. I know it's a little bit off what we're talking about, but we'll do it really quickly. And now I've been to Untermeyer Park with Manny Grossman, and we've been looking at a lot of different things. I noticed that it has these circular structures connected by paths that are kind of unusual in a lot of regards. They had this, I can't describe this as anything other than like a demon sculpture that people will have to go back to the video that I visited. We don't even have a 3D representation of it, but they have a weird demon sculpture there in the garden. And then I just noticed now, for the first time ever, on the roof here, like, what is this circular structure? This doesn't seem like air conditioning or anything. Like, what is that doing there?
I have no clue.
It seems weird.
Broadly speaking, I mean, you look at this place, and I believe that this is, I don't know that it's specifically in a flood zone, but if you go back to the river, it's right next to the river.
Yeah.
And very frequently there are, the banks of the river get overflow a bit. Why would you if this is supposed to be where you house all of, not some of the records, all of the records of the Clinton presidency are supposed to be in that double wide trailer there and maybe sunk into the ground around it. Why would you put that next to a river that might overflow?
I don't know, but does it have anything to do with perhaps some of the esoteric? I mean, Bill Clinton wrote about going and visiting voodoo ceremonies. And
yeah, that's a strange thing. And then over here, actually, as you go down this way, you'll see slowly this here. I mean, you had, when you were scrolling around it before, up popped the William E. Clark Presidential Park Wetlands.
What the hell is that?
Okay, well, the project itself was constructed by CDI, Clark Dillard International or something like that. William Clark was the president of the construction company that put up.
And Dillard from the Dillards.
Right, and that company was a joint venture because the Dillard people felt they were being ripped off by other construction companies. So they got together and they said, these stores that are looking almost exactly the same that we build everywhere, we're not going to pay an architect's fee on every store to a different architect. We're just going to put this damn structure up 400 times or however many times. Our firm is going to be the one to do it. And we'll be very sure, since we control it, that we're not being ripped off until the first CFO that goes into that thing rips off the joint ventures. They have to get rid of him, so they replace it with another person who is the guy who disappeared. And
John, what was his name? Glasgow.
And prior to his disappearance, William E. Clark dropped dead of a heart attack or got cancer prematurely or something at a young age. And so they honor him by creating a wetland
on the river.
I personally, I don't think I'd want to be honored by being, the Charles K. Ortel wetlands next to the William J. Clinton presidential sewer swamp.
Right, it's like a little hut. I mean, what is even going on there?
But why would you want your life to be memorialized as a wetland? I mean, I can understand maybe Hillary Clinton.
I don't think it is. This is a joke on him.
Yeah, I think
it's an insult.
True. It's an insult. It's like, you cross us and you end up in the wetlands.
Right, and you're overseen by this little swampy demon who the hell knows what that thing is doing. But anyway, Charles, just to bring you back to the initial question that is now punctuated by this. The item in this photo that struck me as odd is what appears to me, and I don't know, but it looks like a voodoo doll. What the hell is that? Did you see this
Grover?
This? I guess, I don't know, with a hat, and I don't know what that is. Did you see this movie?
I did see the movie a long time ago.
Does this thing have some significance?
I mean,
in the
you remember, I'm the finance guy, you're the movie guy.
I didn't see this movie. But we're way out in the weeds talking about Owen Wilson's potential voodoo dolls. But
going back, to taking a big step back from the massive details in the swamp, the globalist project, I think, has been a project to destroy the West and to enrich the people destroying the West by promoting projects that are ungovernable, unmanageable, very difficult to analyze, but in most cases, which cause the West and its allies to borrow too much money and allow the people running the projects to steal a lot of money that they then use to pay for our self-destruction.
Cindy Jones tells us, y'all are so from the north, which is absolutely correct. But down here in the south, wetlands are a good thing. And it reminds me of something a lovely young lady in Louisiana said to me once.
What's that?
Everybody knows the rodeo is in October or February. I don't remember when, but apparently everybody except me knows.
Well, I got to correct. So I believe I was born further south than she.
Well,
in Los Angeles, which is pretty far south.
Good point. Okay, Charles, we've got a lot of other stuff. Right, and Mr. Wordsworth accurately points out Slick Willie was into voodoo and participated in voodoo in Haiti. We've spoken about that, and it's written about in the book.
Well, actually, yeah, this is something we're going to dwell on it for a different set of reasons in a second. But yeah, in this book, and for people who've been married and been on honeymoons, I understand getting out of graduate school and having student loans and not having that much money and scrimping and saving to go on a nice honeymoon, because we delayed our honeymoon we were going to get married in 80 and we got married in 82, which allowed us time to save enough money to have a nice wedding and honeymoon and all that. But I'll tell you one thing I don't understand is going on a honeymoon somewhere, coming back, and then having a guy, one of my guy friends from, say, my junior year abroad, say, hey, I know you just got back from your honeymoon, but I've got some frequent flyer miles, and I think the three of us, me, Bill, and Hillary, should go to Haiti for a few days on my frequent flyer miles for a second honeymoon, like 2 weeks after your first one. That's something that does not compute on any level.
You'd be tired and not really into a big international flight, I wouldn't think, right after your honeymoon.
Well, let's start. I mean, back when this supposed honeymoon happened, I'm pretty certain there weren't frequent flyer miles of the type that he claims he was using in a book that was first published in hardback edition in 2004. Paperback was in 2005. So maybe he just forgot about the fact that, he tried to put in this excuse that there were the frequent flyer miles, but there really weren't. I don't understand that. I don't understand going to Haiti really at any time. I mean, you said you've been there, but I have a friend from college who I was thinking of going to Haiti in 75. His father was the U.S. ambassador to Haiti, and he said, "You're out of your fucking mind. You don't want to go to Haiti." We spend as little time there as possible.
He's the chairman of the board of tourism. That's his slogan. Welcome to Haiti.
Forget about it.
Out of your effing mind.
Yeah.
So, Charles, this is the points guy, somebody who I have, this guy knows a lot about frequent flyer programs, and he's saying
May 81.
American Airlines and United both established their mileage programs.
Okay, but the honeymoon was in the 70s, early 70s.
The world of travel has never been the same. Back then, frequent flyer programs were fairly straightforward. You'd take a few flights and earn a free flight. These days, frequent flyer programs are among the most complicated loyalty schemes in the world.
Yeah, I just don't think they had... See, here, look, the early years, okay? This is Bill and Hillary went on their honeymoon. Well, let's go into Wikipedia and see when their honeymoon was. I could get it from the book, but let's just see when they went on their honeymoon. I want to say it was in like 74 or 75, something like that.
1975 wedding photos. Woo!
Please, no. No.
Where's the video? Hillary, it's your Aunt Barbara. Mazel tov, bubbler. Oh my God. What are we looking at here?
I don't know. See, 74. It's 74. Hillary moves to Arkansas. Okay. It took Bill how many times, Jason?
I don't believe that.
How many times?
First of all, who the hell asks a girl to marry them and they say no, and then you ever talk to that person again?
Well, we're all different, Jason. So, some people are a little bit more willing to. Anyway, so here it's October 11th, 1975. They get married in Fayetteville, Arkansas. They went to Dillard's to get her a laced gown for $53.
Huh.
I mean,
but that was not, I mean, that's probably a lot in 1975 for a dress. $200, $300 for a dress? Compared to
I remember numbers. No.
Not a lot. Well, they didn't have a lot of money.
Fine.
Oh, look at the eyebrows. This was before eyebrow threading was on every block.
Right. Okay, it was performed.
Whoa, what is this? Vic Nixon. Who's that?
I don't know. It was unusual for a woman to keep her married name. Boy, they look young there, don't they? October 11th. It's Columbus Day is October 12th.
Right? But this is just when she put it on Instagram.
He put it on Instagram.
Right. Or Twitter.
And then, look at this. They honeymooned with Hillary. I guess that makes sense. So they go with Hillary's entire family to Acapulco. That's pretty weird to go with your in-law. I can tell you, I like the Bushmans, but the notion that we would all go together on a honeymoon, I don't think so. You come back from that and you say, you know what? Let's go to Haiti
with somebody else.
Let's go to Haiti with my friend from Oxford or England or whatever. And while we're at it, because we just got married in a church, let's attend a voodoo ceremony and learn all about voodoo in Haiti.
It's so weird. People are talking about how de Blasio went to Cuba on his honeymoon.
Oh, what about Bernie Sanders?
Were these trips, are these covers that it's their honeymoon, that they're sending them there for some purpose and we just say it's the honeymoon?
I don't know.
Oh, look, there's Chelsea.
Developing her
early expertise
in
diarrhea.
I didn't say.
Where is Buell Hubble or whatever his name is?
Webster.
Why isn't he in there?
I don't know.
There's Chelsea. I don't know, Charles.
Yeah. So about that. Anyway, what I started to explain was that the globalist grift is basically the Clinton Foundation times, many, many millions, basically. That you come up with these projects that sound good in theory on paper. We're going to have a presidential library. It's going to exclusively operate in Little Rock. It's going to comply with the law. We're going to give it to the National Archives. We're going to, make sure that it's all perfect, except that we're not going to do any of that. We're going to basically lie, cheat, steal, not account for anything, all as the FBI is investigating starting in February 2001 what the hell was going on with the Clinton Foundation right the way through the date that Bill and Hillary came to the White House in June of 2004 to see their presidential portraits unveiled in the White House, presidential and First Lady portraits. And there are a lot of accounts of George W. when he had the right cue cards and rehearsed properly. He can give a good speech to a smaller group, and he did welcome the Clintons, both Clintons, warmly and made touching comments about Bill's friendship with George H.W. And supposedly it was a very warm event in June of 2004. But we know, and I don't know if you could do this while we're talking, but we know from the FBI vault file from the William J. Clinton Foundation that just at that same time, the FBI was saying, we can get these guys. I mean, these people, we got them. We've done a lot of work now for 4 years or so, 3 years plus. So far, we only have 3 parts here.
Yeah, why is it so few?
Well, and we can tell from the numbers. We know the number of pages in each filing, and then they say that they have not they're not sending out a bunch of pages, and you can interpolate and guess that the size of this file is much, much bigger, the file that's known. And we also don't, of course, the FBI has not been, and you wouldn't expect them to be completely open as to what they have in their files on this. There's got to be a lot of stuff that maybe shouldn't be shown to the public because it's inconclusive, or they went down an alley and it turned out to be wrong, and why should we be able to see that? I mean, there are reasons why stuff might be redacted, but if you really had control over the administration as Donald Trump, and you were trying to get to the bottom of what really happened with the Clinton Foundation and Hillary Clinton and all this kind of stuff, you would, a logical first place to start would be to have a loyalist say, okay, you were looking at the Clinton Foundation from 2001 to 2004. How come you didn't see that Bill and Hillary Clinton and Chelsea were involved with their own foundation, the Clinton Family Foundation, based in New York, cheating on that, signing the documents, not the way the Clinton Foundation does, the Presidential Foundation, with minions, but Bill and Hillary themselves were signing these disclosure statements to the IRS, to New York State, and lying about the status of their own family foundation. They initially tried to claim that it was a public charity, i.e., I think, enabling them to donate a higher percentage of their income, of their taxable income, into this family foundation. They tried to claim it was a public charity when it wasn't. And we're going to go through in a second, see lots of flaws in those filings. And Hillary's doing this. If you think about the gall of this couple, Hillary Clinton, her first elected position was as a senator. Within a month of being a senator, or 6 weeks of being a senator, she is the subject. We know this from that FBI vault file thing that you just put up there. We saw that in the third part that was released much after the 2016 election. We learned that Hillary Clinton herself was the subject, the target of an investigation involving this Clinton Foundation in 2001, by February 2001. By December 2001, they're submitting false and materially misleading 990s and other filings.
They love that.
That's what they do. And it proves, though, that they know, we're going to show in a second, that they know the rules that applied to their Clinton Foundation, their presidential foundation, because those same rules applied to the family foundation, something that they blew up. So let's show the audience. Today I have to have the benefit of a prop here. Because if we go into the New York State Charity Bureau to try to find this Clinton Foundation, we will originally be stymied.
Where is it? I had it here.
Right there. So if you put in there, the Clinton Family Foundation, and you hit search, you come with nothing, right?
Yeah, that red line means.
All right. Now
nothing.
punch into the EIN 30.
Did I spell it correctly?
Yeah. 30, and then 0048438. Now let's see what happens.
Surprised it wasn't 33. It's the other thing I was trying to find there on Main Street in Arkansas.
Right. So the name of this thing is the Clinton Family Foundation, but they store it as Clinton Family Foundation. Now let's see what they have in New York State.
Click it.
Yeah. All right. They have, the registration statement was filed on August 16th, 2002, right? So they only registered in New York. Remember, Hillary's a sitting senator representing New York State. They only register this charity, which receives a contribution from the Clinton family in December of 2001. They only register it to operate in New York in 2002. Can't do that, right? You have to register it first. Right. And there's no 1023. There's no determination letter. The registration statement is blocked. So you can't look at any of this, right?
Let me ask you something, Charles. Because when you and I started on this project, we were so laser beam focused on the Clinton Foundation that it seemed like all this activity was perhaps unique to it. But now we're finding virtually every foundation you and I have scratched even the surface on seems to do exactly this.
Right. Well, and so we go down here, we look, you see that, go down the page a little bit. That you could only get the 990 for 2006. You can't get it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or the first annual filing because they've delinked that. But they're going to go after the Trump Foundation. They're going to go after any Republican they can go after in New York. Here they make it difficult for you to see that a sitting senator and a former president of the United States are operating a family foundation, as we're going to show you, in violation of the law. At the same time, they're operating multiple other foundations from a base in New York and then bragging about it. Here's a book that Bill, the paperback version of the book, came out in May, around May 31st, 2005. And we're going to point you to, in the afterword, they talk about the Clinton Foundation. They didn't talk about it in the hardback thing. But in the afterword, they say, Bill says, I immediately after leaving the White House, I set up my foundation in New York. There is no record of the Clinton Foundation being set up under Bill's leadership in New York immediately after. And there seems to be no record of it actually being set up.
Well, Dersh said that Epstein helped him set it up.
Right. Well, but there's
then he was like, what letter is that again? Oh, I have no recollection of that.
Exactly. But while we're on this page, let's go and hit this 2006 990, and let's look and see where they claim they sent money. 2006. This is from the Family Foundation. And at the very back, Jason, is a list of the grants.
The last page, you mean?
Not the very last, but it's probably page 27 or... Yeah, right there. Okay, if we could turn it... Yeah, okay. So, and is this... Let's try 26 to see if this is... Because I think they start at the beginning of the 20... All right. 20... Okay, all right. So we just slowly here... I don't know, Mikva Challenge, Wellstone, Shakespeare, School of Ballet. All right, here's the Bush-Clinton-Katrina Fund. Now, mind you, this is the smartest woman in the world.
75 grand.
Oh, but let's go slowly through it, very slowly. So just give it a stop.
I'm just trying to make it so people can see it.
Okay, so this is the smartest woman in the world, the world's diarrhea expert, and the former president, and they're listing out grants that they've made, and they have to say whether they have a connection to it or not. Right? This is no connection, and they're giving it to a public charity. So they're giving it to the Bush-Clinton-Katrina Fund. They're saying the address is 1301 K Street, Northwest, 8th floor, and they're saying it's in a town I've never heard of called East Washington, D.C. There is no such thing as East.
What happens if we look that up?
There is no such thing.
It's weird. 1301.
There is a 1301 K Street, but there's no East Washington, D.C.
So why do they put that there?
I don't know. But this is the hallmark of charity fraud, is when you say you gave something to a charity with a similar sounding name at an address.
Ooh, that's the Washington Post's address.
East Washington, D.C.?
Not East Washington, D.C., but when I put that in, it takes us to the Washington Post.
Could be the Washington Post building.
Yeah, it could be, interestingly, in a part of Washington, D.C. that they don't present in 3D, which I usually find with stuff that they're trying to keep hush-hush about.
Right. So that is, I don't think we can look at it, but I don't think that's the actual address of the Bush-Clinton-Katrina Fund. And you would think that the smartest woman in the world, the diarrhea expert and the former president, would know the real name of the charity that they wrote a check to out of their... of their family foundation.
I have an idea for why they might have put that there. Because there's certain things you can do with your address that still gets it here. Like you could write NYC instead of New York City. You could write Manhattan. You could put a couple things on there. East Washington, D.C. isn't going to not get it to D.C. But if I'm in the mailroom and I get it, and somebody says, if you get a letter for East Washington, D.C.,
right,
give it to me.
Right, exactly. And so but let's keep going. So here's Bush Clinton. This is in 2006. Now, 2006, we've done shows on this before. The Bush Clinton Katrina Fund filings for 2006 are a disaster. Okay, so we go down the page. Let's look at some other ones that might be related. The Clinton Birthplace Foundation in No Hope, Arkansas.
No Hope.
Yeah. And then here we have the University of Arkansas Foundation Diane Blair Center. We talked about the relationship. Diane Blair designed the curriculum for the Clinton School of Public Service before there was a Clinton School of Public Servicing. So there are question marks over that. But let's keep going to the next several grants. The Vital Voices Global Partnership, it says in their literature that Hillary Clinton founded it and has a connection to it, but here it says there's no relationship. And it gets $25,000. And here, University of Arkansas Clinton School, another $75,000. They claim they have no relationship to it, but of course they have a relationship. This is the address of the Clinton Foundation.
Well, I was going to say, that is on the campus of the Clinton. It's in some adjacent building.
No, that is, Sturgis Hall is the address of the Clinton Foundation in Arkansas. This is 2006. 2006 is a year when the main Clinton Foundation must have learned that they did not have authority to claim that HIV/AIDS initiative was actually a charity. They were in the process of 2006 of scamming UNCTAD and entering into a long-term arrangement where UNCTAD ultimately gives $650+ million to the Clinton Foundation through initiatives that don't lawfully exist at a time when Hillary's running for president, when perhaps some of that money might have been skived off to help her failed campaigns or maybe for personal use.
Charles, not to redirect, but people in the chat want us to acknowledge that Donald Rumsfeld is dead and that Bill Cosby is out of jail. We'll come back to that later.
We'll come back to that, yeah. So if we just keep going down the list slowly here, then we have the See Forever Foundation. This is a foundation led by Cheryl Mills, I would say common law husband. She's been living with him for years and years and years. He's the son of a Pete Domenici, and who? Pete Domenici, who was from New Mexico, and he was supposedly an up-and-up guy until it was discovered that he had all kinds of children out of wedlock. And anyway, but Cheryl Mills was essential to she's involved with the Clinton Foundation, but she's an essential part in Haiti later, and before that in the impeachment trial.
She was removing documents from Vince Foster's office before federal investigators were allowed in.
Right. Yeah, and here we have the CAP Charitable Foundation, a Ron Brown scholar. That's to let you know.
What?
The CAP Charitable Foundation. You're going to be wearing a cement cap if you say
Ron
too much.
Brown scholar? What does that mean?
I don't know.
Wow.
So these are the various things that the Clinton Family Foundation gave money to, and all these filings. There are many inaccuracies with the filings that we've laid out here. I don't see in New York State, you're supposed to have an audit. I don't see an audit for this.
Well, aw shucks.
And now I'm looking at another address, 320 West, 13th Street is not the way you would do that. I mean, maybe they're just like the American Conservative Union. They have the same person who's bad with spelling and punctuation and basic English. But I call bullshit on this entire filing.
It's weird, for sure.
So in New York, you can't get the early Clinton Foundation stuff. Let's go into ProPublica and see if you punch in Clinton Family Foundation, can you get the 2001 990, which is not in New York. To the right.
There we go.
Yeah. So, just Clinton Family Foundation in there. Whoa. Okay. Go, if you would, back a step. Let's go back a step. And let's go actually find a nonprofit by all of these words in its name. Right here.
Let me just get rid of this.
Chappaqua, New York.
What are all these different ones?
There's other Clinton's a common name, but this is the Clinton family. All right, now let's go to the very bottom. It's tax exempt since March 2002, it says at the top. Okay? And if you go to 2001, they file a 990 for 2001.
Hit it?
Yep. Which is not in New York. Notice it's called the Clinton Family Foundation. I gave you the thing. Notice they claim they got $800,000 in revenue.
Notice they got a post office box with 3
There you go. And this money comes in 2001 before it's legitimately tax exempt.
What is this, $11?
Well, the thing was formed on December 4th, 2001. So it was in existence for 27 days or thereabouts.
So what's the 11?
That's just interest. You put $800,000 in on December 4th, and maybe you earn $11 worth of interest.
Or maybe $11 is...
No.
So
Not getting, all right, so notice the amount of grants. Contributions, gifts, grants paid.
Nothing.
Right. So they take a deduction on their personal tax return of $800,000 to a charity that is not yet tax exempt. And maybe we can see whether they said it was a public charity or not. And mind you, this thing is filed, you see it there, August 4th, 2002. The FBI is investigating the Clintons personally. We know that from the FBI vault file. We know there's an internal briefing memo to Mueller talking about the status of this investigation around August 4th, 2002, I think. And the great, people always say that the line management at the FBI is fantastic. Line people are fantastic, but it's the awful managers on the 7th floor and elsewhere that can't be trusted. But, they spent 4 years on this. This stuff is in the public domain. We don't have subpoena power. We've been talking about this now. This is the 5th year that you and I, 4th or 5th year you and I have been talking about this. And here's a case where the Clintons claimed an $800,000 deduction to a foundation they controlled that wasn't yet tax exempt in 2001, but they took it off their 2001 taxes. Explain how you do that in the middle of an FBI investigation, unless the way it works is, all right, congratulations, HW. You did good work for us when Ronnie was president. Now you're in the chair. Don't fuck this up, and we'll let you have 2 terms. And you're in the club now, which means you and your children are not going to be investigated. You will live a long and happy life, and you can grift to your heart's content. But, our team is going to be doing some things that you don't have a need to know about. Is the charitable way to think about it. And you have a black hat. It's like he's in there, and now he's calling all the shots. I think it's somewhere between the two.
Well,
but if we can go into the presidential tax return, we go to down the page, we look and see, I think Hillary Clinton arranges for the 2001 returns to be filed.
Did you find that before?
Yeah, slowly hit next, and that's slowly. Okay, go back up the page a little bit. Further up. Previous page, I guess.
Running.
Yeah. Now,
Jill Stein, she's going to be here somewhere.
Hillary Clinton, 16 tax returns. 2001. Okay.
We're like Rachel Maddow now, Charles. We have Hillary Clinton's tax returns.
Right.
Oh.
Here they are.
Yeah.
And so we go down, exemptions, income. I think it's the next page is deductions. Maybe keep going. You have slowly here. Whoa, slowly. Yeah. Interest, gifts to charity, $807,585. Okay. 807,585. I believe the 800 is to their own foundation. Okay.
So she's giving 7,000
right
out of 800 grand.
Out of a total income of 15 million, and say, I think I'll give $7,000 away.
How the hell did she make 15 million?
Books.
Holy crap!
The books.
Come on now.
Yeah, go back up. You'll see.
Ah,
Previous page rather.
who the
This
hell?
is the deductions. Previous page.
Enter amount from Form 1040. But I'm just saying, I don't believe that.
Well,
15 million.
you'll see. Here's the.
Look
here
at
you
that.
go.
Foreign tax credit, 33,000.
All right. Yeah, 15.9 million is the total adjusted gross income. But if you go, they break it down, 16.2 until here you go.
Grifting.
Business income. You'll see Schedule C will detail what it is. So
Wow.
we go through this. They give $800,000 to a charity that doesn't exist yet legally. And of course, the FBI is busy investigating this. They're just investigating this to your heart's content. Just don't want to see any, Clinton and crime. I mean, if we find a crime, we can't go after that. It's the Clintons. Foreign accounts. Wait, we can't tell you about. Or here's Hillary Clinton as an author. She makes $2.8 million. Okay. And she writes off depreciation somehow. She writes off other expenses somehow. And the tentative profit is 2.6. You go to the next page. I think we have Bill Clinton speaking and writing. He makes 13.7. Now let's just stop there for a second. 2001. Was there inequality of income in the Clinton family household? Hillary made 2.9. Bill made 13.7. Why wasn't Hillary complaining about that?
Right.
Keep going down here. We're going to get to, I think we're going to get to a breakdown of this the gifts to charity from memory. I used to keep scrolling. I don't know how many pages. There are only 19 pages, so we're all halfway through. Slowly. This
is another 33,000.
Yeah. This is IRAs. Forget that. Not relevant. All right. Slowly. Let's see. DNA. This is depreciation. I thought they did itemize or did have a statement as to where
Depreciation and amortization.
Yeah, but here we go. Federal statements slowly. This is a breakdown of interest, personal property, and I thought maybe it's the next page, the final page, they say the breakdown of charitable gifts. All right, they don't. They don't ever explain in this return how. They don't specifically explain the $800,000 to the Clinton Family Foundation, and we'd have to have a tax accountant go look at that and tell us was it proper or not to account for the deduction the way they did. We'll let tax accountants look at that at their leisure. Okay. So back in ProPublica, if we go back a page there, now let's look at 2000, let's say 4. Let's see where the Clinton Family Foundation gave money in 2004. Again, this is not in New York. I guess you can download it to get.
Whoa. There we go.
Okay. So this says they made $221,000 of donations, and they break them down towards the end. This, of course, is the year when the presidential library is finished, in theory, or at least open to the public, November 18th, 2004. And we'll see towards the end, we'll have another. And you see, this is signed by Bill. There you see his actual signature. May 7th, 2005.
Use him like a Sharpie or something.
24 days before this paperback comes out, where he brags, he says, as we'll say in a second, it's just lie after lie after lie in this book. Oh, I see. Actually, slow down for a second, Jason. If we go up, you see here it says 501c3 exempt private foundation. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it says it is.
I thought a 501c3 is a public.
You can be either a private foundation or a public charity. Here, by 4, they're claiming that it's a private foundation. The question is, what did they claim it was in 2001, when it was also a private foundation? Towards the very end, I guess this is 17. They should have a list that, yeah, here. Next page is a list of who got the money. Slowly. You get, let's see, very top. The University of Arkansas, the Baptist Church, Vital Voices, to which they claim there's no connection when there is one.
What's Thea Foundation?
That's a girl in Arkansas who died, I think, traveling internationally, a friend of the Clinton family. But in 2004, the crucial year when the Clinton, look at this, is something I hadn't seen before, when the Clinton Foundation, Presidential Foundation, was open. Are you familiar with this committee?
Columbine?
Read all of it.
Memorial Committee, none?
No, you're reading it pretty quickly. Memorial.
Memorial. Yeah.
This guy, President of the United States.
Foundation for people who cannot spell things.
I think this is Littleton, Colorado. I think this is Columbine Memorial Committee. I question whether it even exists.
And also, that's a high school, so they have a lot to worry about if they can't even spell their own name.
Right. And here's the American Heart Association. Now, they were about to set up
$100 to that?
$100.
What's the point of that? That's ridiculous.
I know.
Well, because maybe that's a real, actual charity.
But nothing for the Clinton Presidential Foundation in 2004, the year that it comes together. Nothing for Chai in 2004.
But so do they claim that they did or something?
No, my point to you is if you're out there and the double wide thing's going up, you got presidents showing up, you got Bono there, you got a big free-for-all out there, and Bill's saying that he took responsibility for raising the money of it, a logical thing to do, knowing that this IRS form is going to end up in the public domain, is to say, you know what, honey, we donated $2 million this year into our family foundation. We're only spending $221,000 on grants. Why don't we write a check for $1 million to the Presidential Foundation, which will encourage the other donors to say, oh, the family gave $1 million, we'll at least give $20 million, or. But if you give it nothing, kind of a schmuck, my charity, named after me, is so freaking important that I gave it no money. Instead, I gave it to the Komumembi, whatever it is, Memorial Committee in Colorado, $100. That's where my priorities are, not to my foundation, the legacy of my life.
It's interesting that they're giving money to the Columbine. I guess 2004 it was. When did that happen, Columbine?
I don't know.
1997 or something?
Under his watch. So
that's what I mean. That's very weird.
So this book here, which is in tiny, tiny type and is really excellent. I can tell you this book is fantastic. If you've got a door that you want to keep open, you could just put it right down here, and it's going to keep most doors from shutting. It is towards the end here. I have an excellent agent, and I've been talking to her, and I know just through life and other authors that when you try to get a book published by this is Vintage Books. And Vintage Books, we're going to circle back and explain who they are in a second. We'll talk to Jen Pizzacchi, circle back and...
Right. And then get angry and lie.
Right. Here, it's in the afterword, which did not exist for the hardback version, so May 31st, 2005, it has been full of well-laid plans. This is the period after leaving the White House. Well-laid plans.
I think that's true.
A phrase I would not use as Bill Clinton. Building my library in Arkansas and my foundation in Harlem. This is a book that this paperback version appears May 31st, 2005, where he states, it is my library in Arkansas and my foundation in Harlem. That being the case, you would have to, in the filings for his library in Arkansas and his foundation in Harlem, which are one and the same, you would have to explain his connections to this entity, which he does not, nor does the entity explain the close ties and relationships and likely expense reimbursements flowing back and forth between the Clinton family and these supposedly public charities. And then it says here at the bottom of page 958, I think, soon after leaving office, which was on January 20th, 2001, he's got Obama-itis, I set up my foundation headquarters in Harlem in New York City. There is no evidence of that in the New York State Attorney General Charity Bureau. There just isn't. But we're going to turf Don Jr. and Eric and Ivanka and
anybody
Senior
who works for the thing.
For the Trump Foundation. They can never work in New York in a charity again. But Bill, a carpetbagger, can come in and, quote, soon after leaving office, just as the FBI opened up an investigation into my wife and I for public corruption and other frauds.
You're adding that part.
Yeah, of course. That's my editorial bent. I set up my criminal enterprises headquarters in Harlem and New York City because I figured everybody would think this is fantastic. Former presidents come into Harlem and give me a pass. And it's much easier to take...
That actually did happen.
Right. It's much easier to take these big bags of cash that are going to be delivered to my office to banks around the city. No one's going to really check it. Besides, I've got Secret Service detail who are loyal, and we'll be able to cover up this money laundering. And meanwhile, I forget who the governor was then. I don't know if it was Elliot Spitzer yet. I think he was Attorney General when they first started, and then he became governor. And I know the Democrat establishment is never going to really give me a hard time here. So he talks about doing that in Harlem. Then he talks about doing the America India Foundation. We've done shows on that. He takes credit for establishing that fraud in 2001. And then for doing something that I can't seem to find evidence of, maybe I'm just don't know where to look properly, that with Bob Dole, he raised another $100 million after 9/11 for entities that don't seem to exist. Then it talks about in 2002, the Small Business Initiative, which was never registered, then many, many other things. He's just saying in this thing, I did this, I did that, I. And by May 31st, 2005, when this book was published, the Clinton Foundation had never issued an audit that was independently certified as being in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles in the United States. Hillary's a sitting senator yakking away, criticizing Bush. Bill's out there on the speech circuit pulling down multiple millions. They're getting multiple book deals. They can't run their family foundation legitimately. They can't run the presidential foundation legitimately. And yet, this publishing company is willing to publish this and to pay the Clinton family, Bill, $10+ million. So that caused me to look and say, well, who the hell is this Vintage Books? So if we go into Google and we do Vintage Books in Wikipedia, and the art department has done another fantastic poster.
Thanks.
All right. This was purchased by Random House in April 1960. It merged with Bantam Doubleday Dell.
Who's Alfred Knopf?
That a very famous publishing house. But
set up in the United Kingdom.
All right. Well, then, so Knopf Doubleday Publishing. Hit the Random House link. Okay, is part of Penguin Random House, which is owned by German media conglomerate Bertelsmann. Hit Bertelsmann. Okay, now before we get into the weeds here, if you had just paid off, you're a private publishing house, and you just paid the former president of the United States $10+ million to write a book, and you were going to incur market expenses to hawk the shit out of this book around the world, would you want to admit in this paperback edition, our publishing house is controlled by 3 family foundations in Germany, and the author that we've given all this money to is an expert at charity fraud, having created his own Clinton Family Foundation and pulling the wool over the FBI, the Department of Justice, the IRS's eyes, operating fraudulent charities around the world. And that's why and I'm not saying that Bertelsmann foundations are crooked, because I don't speak German and I don't know German law and I don't know anything. But I do know when you get into the weeds here, you discover that the current ownership structure of Bertelsmann is that I believe there's a family interest for 10%, and there are 3 separate foundations that have interests together, controlling interests over this private publishing enterprise. Now, there's a big controversy about Bertelsmann.
What's that?
Well, it's just described here in the section you're on.
What do you think about this?
Yeah, is that something that's symbol significant to you?
It looks pretty odd. I don't know what it's all about. But.
So, during the Third Reich, the publishing house gained a prominent position with its affordable People's editions. The family patriarch belonged to the patron circle of the SS and sought to turn his company into a National Socialist model enterprise.
Oh, Jewish slave laborers were forced to work. That's good, printing books.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, I mean...
But that's fine. We need reparations for the guy who made $1 billion starting black entertainment television.
Of course, he wants his. So, anyway, they went back into this family. Last name is Mohn. They made some comments in the recent past where they said during World War II that they actually had been forced to suspend operations and that they were opposed to Hitler and blah, blah, blah. And it turns out not so much.
Yeah, they had to suspend operations so that they could hang out with George Soros, confiscating property.
And remember, I've told you before that the working title for Bill Clinton's book, My Life,
My Struggle,
was My Struggle, until somebody on the team, maybe it was Doug Band of Brothers or somebody
Someone
else.
at this German publisher's like, we cannot publish another book with the same name.
Nine.
Yeah. Mein Kampf.
We already done that book.
I was looking on the map, Charles. You know, there is this occult bar on Main Street in Little Rock, Arkansas. And
why would you be looking on a map for that?
Well, because I wanted to show it to people, and it was very odd to me. It's chock full of nifty neighborhoods, according to this. There's this bar that had all this occult symbology all over it, and Satanic Temple Baphomet statue.
Can you put it
went
up on
to
the
the
screen?
Arkansas Capitol. I'm just wondering, like, what's with the interest in Satanism in Little Rock? Satanic idol goes to the Arkansas Capitol.
Yeah.
The winged goat creature, they had it at a rally for the First Amendment. So you can put all the Baphomets you want.
Well, see, again, actually, I'm somebody who would defend the right of an American to exhibit this statue for just the reason that we now have. They have the right to put it out there, and we have the right to make withering criticism of a bunch of people who would be so stupid as to worship Satan.
Well, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we'd be surprised. Baphomet? Now, what is this? Baphomet loves Arkansas, but why did they choose to make that item number 3 and use the emoji for love with... I mean, that's weird, you know? Baphomet loves Arkansas.
You know, there's a moment in time, you could talk about America being poor, America being challenged here and there, but you've got too much free time when a bunch of people are sitting around saying, okay, let's worship, we could worship love, we could worship water, we could worship Gaia, we could worship food, why not worship Satan, the devil? Let's get together doing that. Let's have meetings about that. Let's pay people to do sculptures about that. At the very least, you have to say, America must be a freaking rich country if we have enough spare time on our hands to organize ourselves in a way that a significant number of people will be engaged in this absurd idea.
Well, and I mean, look, there's a long history and a lot of evidence of weird occult interests by the Clintons. Not to mention, I mean, that bizarre demonic statue. at their, presidential library. So the Saul Alinsky book, Rules for Radicals, is dedicated to Lucifer.
Yeah, and didn't Hillary Clinton write her thesis about this?
Yes. And this is published by Random House.
Same firm.
Right. And let's just see where he's talking about Lucifer in here. Here it is. It says, Saul Alinsky, lest we forget, at least an over-the-shoulder acknowledgement to the very first radical from all our legends, mythology, and history. And who is to know where mythology leaves off and history begins, or which is which?
How did you spell the second witch?
Yeah.
W-I-T-C-H?
Right.
Anyway.
The first radical known to man who rebelled against the establishment and did it so effectively that he at least won his own kingdom, Lucifer.
Well, I'm surprised they didn't name their kid Lucy.
Good point.
As opposed to Chelsea.
They should have. Maybe that's too on the nose for them. I don't know.
But what a reprehensible individual.
Which one?
Saul Alinsky and Hillary.
Please, absolutely. And you're probably aware that Saul Alinsky was down with Willie Brown like AC is down with OJ. They're hanging out, yucking it up. And then Willie Brown goes on to, among other things, mentor, I guess is the word.
I think she was mentoring him.
Exactly. Kamala Harris. And then there's another thing that Willie Brown got a low-key warning on 9/11. Were you aware of that?
I was not.
Yeah. And I mean, I allege that the Weather Underground, this was a news headline. Let me see, where can I find it? Willie Brown got a low-key investor hub. It was a headline in something. Got a low-key early warning. Maybe this is it, SF Gate. I think this is it. Yeah, Willie Brown got a low-key early warning about air travel. And this was an interview
From
with
who?
him. I don't know if it is revealed who he got it from. First signs that something was amiss came late Monday when he got a call from what he described as his airport security a full 8 hours before yesterday's. So this was published September 12th, 2001.
Wasn't I? Look! I didn't see that.
What?
Oh yeah, September 12th updated. I saw updated February 13th, 2012.
Well, advising him that Americans should be cautious about air travel. I mean, that sounds like a low-key warning from the Weather Underground. Guard your airplanes. Be cautious. They were vague like that, but...
Well, remember, in this time frame, in 2001, September 11th, this is precisely when the FBI was, in theory, ramping up its investigation of the Clinton Foundation. That investigation began around February 15th, 2001. A lot of the personnel involved with it were based in New York.
Well, and how about Bill Ayers, No Regrets for a Love of Explosives? This also published in the New York Times, coincidentally, on September 11th, 2001. Ayers tells us, I don't regret setting bombs.
Look at the name. This is Joe Biden's doctor, Dementia Smith.
Danita.
Oh, sorry.
But he feels we didn't do enough. I mean, to publish this on September 11th, just hours before that attack, in my view, this is at least suggestive of foreknowledge.
Yeah, with the New York Times, with Saul Alinsky, with all these people who talk about what they're going to blow up, what they're going to tear down, what they're going to fight for, why there needs to be conflict and this and that. I'm just like, really? Why do we need all that? I mean, I'm more a peace and love kind of guy, and everything you're talking about seems to be talking about taking my shit, and I don't really want to give you my shit. I've saved my money, invested it a long time, and made money and lost money, and I don't think you have any right to take my shit. And this whole program that you're on is basically crazy. And in fact, if we see, it's interesting you would bring this up. At the same moment, we see that the Biden administration may or may not through the NSA have been targeting Tucker Carlson and likely many other people.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
The Biden administration is, the narrative on January 6th is falling apart now with this Oath Keepers guy.
What do you mean? I didn't hear about that.
Yes, it just happened in the last little while that this Oath Keepers guy, last name Rhodes, Rhodes.
First name Cecil?
No. But he's a Yale Law School graduate.
God.
A disbarred lawyer who was supposedly the leader of the Oath Keepers. And now they're saying, well, was the Oath Keepers actually maybe set up by the FBI or others? And why is this guy being treated in a special way as opposed to other folks? Was he actually working to set up gullible QAnon types and others on January 6th? And I think the answer is...
I feel like somebody's been saying that since like 2018.
January 6th, maybe? Like,
no, I'm talking about QAnon capturing the gullible. Yeah. People got mad when I said that.
There was a guy called Jason Goodman who used to talk about that.
Are you related? He was like, wait a minute, don't trust that thing.
Are you related to him by chance? Do you know him?
Charles, why would anyone trust an anonymous, unknown thing? And furthermore, for people who do trust it or don't, if there's something, someone, some group, some entity, whatever it is, that spends 4 years releasing classified information that's conceivably damaging to the United States, and we've got this intelligence apparatus, whether it's the FBI or the NSA or the CIA, and that's just happening, and they're doing nothing, I think we can draw a couple conclusions from that. Either the stuff being released is irrelevant and nobody cares, the United States intelligence community is incompetent and incapable of identifying even someone within their own ranks leaking this stuff, or they're deliberately putting it out and they don't have an interest in stopping it from going out because they have a purpose other than what it appears to be.
Well, it could also be that it's proof positive that the educational system has actually finally and irretrievably failed. Because, when we go back and forth about does the Constitution matter? Is it a living document? Can it be? What the founders understood by 1789, certainly, that the natural impulse of leaders would be to draw people into war. That has been the history of humankind. There's this enemy. We've got to guard against the enemy coming. Give me more tax revenue so that I can protect you from some unseen enemy. This has gone on and on and on. It's been throughout the course of American history, which is why the founders thought they were going to solve that by saying, listen, you can't use our military forces in any conflict without getting a declaration of war out of the House of Representatives, which was staffed by people then close to the people who would not want to use their money, their children, etc., to float into perpetual war. But the perpetual war machine proved them. A nice look.
Well, I was going to say...
Was that Joe Biden rehearsing for his inaugural speech? Or was
I
that
thought
Hunter,
perhaps you were moving towards a declaration that you regret that you left your furry hat, horns, and face paint at home. And by the way, all this stuff tattooed on this moron, the tree of life, I guess, or whatever this is, I think this is occult stuff as well. He's got the Thor hammer. What the hell is up with this idiot?
And there should be a thing. I mean, I only briefly had a beard once in 2005 just to see what it was like. And it was horrible in my case. But you would think that of the many inventions that people could come up with, one would be an ugly beard detector. That somebody walked by and the horns would go off. Take this kid, go into the local barbershop. Say, would you prefer weed, whiskey, or wine? You take your pick, give you a bunch of that. Once you pass out, we're going to shave this fucking beard off because you look ridiculous.
Wow. So, I mean, listen, as much as I find this guy to be an absolute dope, and he was, in many ways, he kind of symbolizes the whole event, who did he hurt? He just showed up and acted like a moron. I mean, he's actually even making jokes and stuff at times during this thing. Why do they need to keep this guy in jail this whole time if they're letting John Sullivan out and people who smashed windows and burnt things down?
Well, equally, I mean, what this tells the world, and there are a lot of crazy people in the world, in America and elsewhere, This tells the world that our capital is not, and our important buildings and maybe our top people are not
secure,
are not properly defended, and that there are going to be moments in time where if you want to cause mayhem and destruction, you open up our southern border, Joe, moron, and then you send out, when she went down to El Paso, which is, as you know, far away from where the problem is.
I was there and there was nothing going on.
Right. The signs apparently were referring to her not as Kamala, but K-Mala, Q-U-E-M-A-L-A, which sometimes I think means how bad or something like that.
Q-Mala. It's like the QAnon Mala.
Right.
Mal.
But what this message sends to people who would do us harm is, we're making it easy for you. Come on in, come on down, send us your worst. And there may be moments of time where we have the National Guard there and it may look as if we're pretty tough. But there will come another moment where you can exploit the Capitol. Maybe you exploit the Supreme Court. Maybe you go after politicians where they live. This was a horrible decision. And mind you, this decision occurred not under Obama. The response to the riot occurred under Trump, January 6th. And I mean, the people who were looking at that from the Trump administration literally have blood on their hands, for not handling that properly. If it was as obvious, I think, to you and to me that a lot of people were going to come there, they should have reinforced. Trump's people should have.
Trump say, let's put the National Guard, and Nancy Pelosi said no?
Again, but that's where it should not have ended. See, that's where I like Trump. I like much of what he did. But this propensity, Roosevelt said, I think the buck stops here.
Yeah.
And with Trump, it's always
the opposite. The buck is somewhere over there, right?
Yeah, you're like over there. I mean, Jared, why'd you do this? Pence, it was a disaster. Barr is a disaster. Sessions is a disaster. Everybody.
Well, he's right.
Well, but the point is,
it's his fault.
Yeah, but this is not like when you're syndicating a real estate development project and you sell 200 apartments and 4 of them are hopeless. You could say, well, look, the contractor was a fuck up. The toilet seat didn't work. The shower head didn't work. The carpet, I'm sorry, it's not my fault. Your name's on I know my name's on the building, but every toilet, I can't be responsible for everything.
The Trump toilet.
Yeah, the thrower. But
I think we're living in it right now, the Trump toilet.
Yeah, and the consequence of letting Fauci pull the bullshit that he pulled with the CDC, letting
what was
EcoHealth,
he waiting for?
The EcoHealth and others pulled, falling for that, not being skeptical enough of Pence, not being skeptical enough of Comey and others, not putting a real team together before January 20th, 2017, so he could have landed. He apparently, his net worth is down in the billions from where he started. So according to some reports, he's already...
What do you mean down in the billions?
Down from, if it was 10 billion before, it's 6 billion now or whatever. I mean, he should have, shoulda, woulda, coulda, and he did a lot of great stuff, and I'm never going to run for president, nor would I want to be president, so I understand he did a Herculean job, but at the end of a marathon, when you come in second, it's impressive that you ran a marathon, but you didn't win it, and now because you didn't win, we're in New York as a shithole. And that's what we may be sitting here if we're alive a month from now and saying, God, I used to like it when it was a shithole. Now it's radioactive.
I hope that's not the case. It reminds me of a guy who worked for 21st Century 3D, and he was very interested in this very obscure aspect of technology that I was like, this is not really our core focus, and it's fine if you want to mess around with it. And he brought in a client for that, and it was like his baby, and he worked so hard to get this client, and then he was up super late preparing the thing, and on the day that we had to present the final thing, because this guy was such a moron, he overslept and showed up late. And then I was like, dude, you totally blew it. And he's like, yeah, but it was because I was working so hard to get, it's like, it doesn't matter. This was the day that the rubber met the road and you were literally asleep. You're a loser.
Did you get the business?
No, we had the business, and when he had to deliver it to them for their event, it wasn't there. It was a disaster.
Sorry to laugh, but
no.
Yeah. So
but that's what I mean. The point is, if you do all this great stuff, and then when it comes time to deliver, you fail, you failed.
Yeah, we used to have this. I'm sure you had it too. In elementary school, you have the letter grade or number grade, and you have the effort grade.
Yeah.
Right? And so you get a for effort or 1 for effort, but you don't turn in a paper, you fail.
You got an
it's
F,
like,
yeah.
does the effort grade doesn't really matter if you
No,
don't
it doesn't. It's wasted effort.
But so we have the spectacle. We have Dr. Jill Biden is going to get on Air Force whatever and fly to Japan soon for the Tokyo Olympics and represent this country. I'm so reassured. She'll bring her medical expertise to a country that's now got this Delta variant of COVID in theory, and people are worried about what may happen over there in Japan. And, Joe is going to stay here. He doesn't like, he likes his steaks. He doesn't like his steaks raw, the way they serve them in Japan. Oh, that's fish. That's steak.
It's ridiculous how undereducated most of our presidents have been. But what about this, Charles? Bill Cosby is released from prison. Gloria Allred, she's the attorney. For the accusers. That makes sense. I didn't hear what she had to say after he was released from prison, but she doesn't look happy about it.
She's smiling in that picture.
Well, he's been released. There was some sort of a complicated legal issue where something that he had said during a deposition in one of the civil cases was then used against him after a prosecutor said he wasn't going to be charged. I don't understand what happened that got him out of jail. What do you think about this?
Well, listen, if he, on the substance of the charges, watching what I watched, and I wasn't in the courtroom and I don't follow this stuff very, very closely, but watching what I did happen to watch, he seemed obviously guilty. It wasn't like, it wasn't a thing of, maybe, on what was presented, guilty as fuck, right? Now, if it is the case that this trial was, as it were, trumped up, that there was an agreement that was not respected, that he shouldn't have been tried in the first place, this is brilliant. Look at this. Dershowitz defends Cosby, of course.
I knew he would say something stupid. This guy is one of the biggest scumbags and liars on the planet. Nothing that Alan Dershowitz says can be presumed to be true because he is a brazen liar. He has lied about me. He's lied about that letter. And the man is a fundamentally corrupt individual.
And now he's comparing Trump to Cosby. I think that will be the last time that Dershowitz works for Trump.
Well, this is what he is all about. I have a feeling I want to learn more about what was going on with Klaus von Bülow and all of these cases where Dershowitz gets involved and something gets overturned, favorably comparing serial predator Bill Cosby to former President Donald Trump on Wednesday. Celebrity attorney turned right-wing pundit Alan Dershowitz
I don't think he's a right-wing pundit.
cranked the hot take dial all the way up to 11, claiming both men were victims of a political mob. Dershowitz is an idiot.
He's getting on in years, too. Let's face it, as you age, you do slow, and the guy's 83.
Well,
and and I understand that in our system, you want to make sure that there is an able lawyer available to defend all defendants. And it is not the job necessarily it's not really the job of the defense attorney merely to defend. It's the job of the prosecution to prove to the relevant standard required in a civil or criminal case. And that said, I must say this Dershowitz in the last 2 or 3 years is more than just simply disappointed.
He's just a complete dirtbag. Let's see, what do they say? I want to learn more about what Klaus von Bülow was all about. Very dainty how he holds that cigarette, isn't it, Charles?
It is.
Klaus. Who was this guy, Klaus von Bülow? What was his
story? I
don't
know enough of the...
Danish-born socialite. Well, he died at his home in London. When was that? 2019. It's interesting, I'm trying to remember if I said anything about this actually on air, but, people who were watching on the trail of Son of Sam with Manny Grossman the other day, I mentioned this whole Dershowitz von Bülow representation in the context of Maury Terry's book, The Ultimate Evil, brought up Klaus von Bülow. And I was asking Manny Grossman, what's up with Klaus von Bülow's connection to the Son of Sam murders? And Manny wasn't sure. But when I spoke about that, and I spoke about the fact that Dershowitz represented him and he got a conviction overturned in a pretty surprising way, and how similar some of the stuff in Untermeyer Park and stuff related to Son of Sam was to some of the stuff on the Jeffrey Epstein Island, weird esoteric religious symbology and isolation and these like stone slabs and stuff. And I said it's a weird coincidence that Dershowitz also represented Epstein, who got sort of out of crimes that he shouldn't have gotten out of. Just wondering if there is any similar connection. That night, just 3 hours later, Robert Barnes, who does podcasts with David Freiheit, who is a huge Dershowitz sycophant, those guys, who normally are dealing with current legal analysis, spoke about who is the real Son of Sam. And that just seemed remarkably coincidental to me that they would take an interest in Son of Sam, with Barnes mentioning it, hours after I talk about Dershowitz relative to that.
Well, just on Dershowitz, what I find interesting is, like, I'm not saying he's precisely like Mike Lindell, but his life story is not properly understood yet. I mean, I always assumed that he got married late in life, but in fact he was married twice, I believe, or at least to one woman who I think died.
She jumped off a bridge committing suicide.
Yeah, I was going to let you say that, and I guess you did. And you know, when he was very, very young, I mean, to get into Harvard Law School used to be quite difficult. I don't know if it still is, if it's easier now or not, but it used to be very difficult. To get in, to then become a professor before the age of 30, you're a professor at Harvard Law School. I mean, that is a big-ass deal. And maybe in his youth he was more principled, maybe not. I haven't studied his entire life. But you could imagine how a guy like that with such a high public profile would be deemed essential in any project by Harvard to keep Harvard out of trouble. Because Harvard, of the brand names that really matter, Harvard is one that's extremely important, right? If you put Harvard's seal of approval on any investment project, right, on any whatever, you could take, let's say, I'm not saying you'd ever want to do this, but let's say you wanted to take this operation public, and you pick the star business school professor, and you meet him at, I don't know, the steakhouse in New York City by accident. You get to talking, and the guy's an amateur video thing, and he's actually watched your thing, and he says, I've been meaning to reach you. I didn't know how to do it, and would you ever think about going public? And if you would, I'd go on your board. And suddenly, you've got a good idea. You've got Harvard's leading professor asking for the honor of going on your board. Now you find, go to call up Doug Bandit Teneo, the king of laundering dirty money, or formerly of Teneo, and he's, this is genius. I don't like your politics, but you got this Harvard professor on the board. I could take you public or find people to do so.
Right.
And you get a valuation for the thing of $1 billion, or new investors put up $100 million for 10%. You're worth $900 million off the project. And I'm not saying that precisely happened with Dershowitz or with people like Dershowitz, but that's the opportunity with a big brand name educational institution that has a law school, that has a business school.
It's very
a decade
strange,
after
Charles.
they separated.
When I put in Dershowitz's first wife death into Google, you would think that would bring back news articles about it, but it does not. This is Bing right now, and it says his first wife killed herself a decade after they separated. Dershowitz met Sue Burlock in 1959, and they had 2 children.
And he obtained custody of the children. That's not easy.
Well, it is if you're a lawyer and you're able to make them think she's crazy, or perhaps there was mental.
I don't know in what jurisdiction he did this.
See, but
Dershowitz's current wife was his mistress. What was that?
This is a quote from somebody on Twitter, so we don't know if that's true or not. But
again, it says.
Now, he wrote the book Reversal of Fortune, didn't he? Because that was the story. That's quite interesting. Reversal of Fortune, 1990 American drama film, adapted from the 1985. The book was written by Dershowitz. So what do we think about the defense attorney writing a a fictionalized novel about it. That seems like a real social engineering way, and then make a movie out of it that wins an Academy Award.
Wins the award? I didn't even know
that becomes everybody's memory of the facts of the matter. So I'm going to say right now, produced by Oliver Stone. I really do think that Alan Dershowitz is a social engineer of the highest order who is protecting Epstein, probably was protecting whatever it is.
He was a hot dog professor of law.
Whatever.
If you hit Alan Dershowitz.
He was the, what was he?
Hot dog.
Where does it say hot dog?
The Felix Frankfurter professor of law. That's a big deal, actually.
Right. But he is not to be trusted at all. Yeah, Klaus von Bülow.
Wait. Dershowitz is initially convinced of Klaus's guilt, but takes the case because von Bülow agrees to fund Dershowitz's defense of two poor black boys accused of capital murder. Employing his law students as workers, I'm sure he compensated them fairly, Dershowitz proceeds to defend Klaus.
It's an interesting tale. And Dershowitz is one of the most reprehensible individuals I'm aware of. And
not much of a box office. 15.4 million?
I think that back then it was probably, when was the movie released? 1990.
That doesn't seem like much for that time. To win an Academy Award.
What was the highest grossing film of 1990?
Probably 100 maybe?
No, actually, the first film to make $100 million was Terminator 2, and that was in 1991. It looks like Ghost was the highest grossing film. Home Alone, Pretty Woman. So what was the box office performance of Ghost? Wow.
500 million?
Yeah, sorry. I think the first film to be budgeted over 100 million was Terminator 2.
So 15.4 is nothing in that.
Yeah, that's pretty low. Well, it was an art house film, perhaps. I remember when it came out.
I'm just saying it's low.
It's low. And by the way, I still say that the Motion Picture Academy of Arts and Sciences and various other academies of arts and sciences, in my opinion, evidence causes me to believe that they are offshoots of the Office of War Information that was taken down after World War II. And I believe these things were established to reward propagandists and suppress people who are challenging the propaganda. And Klaus von Bülow's story, written by Alan Dershowitz, winning an Academy Award, maybe supports that theory a little bit.
So just to go into the mind of the art department here, is that Bullwinkle?
Which? No, you know what? That's from the original movie. I don't know. That's Bull somebody, but
and is that Hunter's crack bag, or is that filled with crack, or is that filled with money?
Joe E.
That's Mr. 10%'s in there.
That's probably got a little girl in it, and he's going to sniff in a minute. Look at her. She looks like she's 19. I'm going to put her in a duffel bag.
Do you see? I think I've sent you back and forth those clips. This puppeteer, Jeff Dunham.
Yeah.
Is it possible to show the audience that?
We can't show the video because it'll definitely get
But you can do a Google search, right?
We can say show the puppet.
Yeah. Jeff Dunham, Biden. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty funny.
Yeah. It definitely looks a lot like him.
I mean, this Jeff Dunham is very, very clever.
Well, he's a bit like Carvel, though, because the Trump puppet is sort of the same puppet, just with different hair.
And there's Ahmed, right? That's Ahmed the terrorist. I've seen videos of Jeff Dunham performing with Ahmed, and he is a ventriloquist. He's not. It's not like Joe, where there's somebody talking in Joe's ear, and he's trying to keep up with the voices.
That does seem to be what's happening.
Right, I know. And he went out to Wisconsin, I think, either yesterday or the day before yesterday, and he gets up on stage and he said, it's great to be back in Wisconsin. I was just here recently, and it's good to see the progress or whatever. he wasn't just here recently. The last visit was a Zoom call. He was not, and just on that alone, enemies, the Putin's people, every time the president gets up, there's somebody around the world, North Korea, elsewhere, China, they're looking and saying, okay, your job, you people whose families in China are going to go direct to the slave camp if you screw this up, your job is to watch Joe Biden and give us a clinical assessment of his fitness so that we can war game. When we take Taiwan, what is Joe's, how long will it take Joe to realize that he's awake and that this isn't a movie and, that he's got to do something about it? And who's going to countermand his orders? And people watch for these screw-ups. And when they see them happen, that's when they pounce. And we've got July 4th coming up, which is fireworks displays and all kinds of things happening. And crowds are gathering. So this is a moment of time where people should be nervous about what could happen on this holiday weekend. We also have, we should just point out the breaking news that they're breathlessly saying after prepping this on MSDNC and CNN and the Laundry Channel, the Money Laundry Channel, or whatever you want to call it.
What is the Money Laundry Channel?
Just any other one of these crappy
Fox.
Channels. We had NBC, CBS, ABC.
They're all money launderers.
They're breathlessly saying that the Trump organization is going to be indicted and Weisselberg, the CFO, is going to be invited, and how long before he flips on Trump, and all this is going to happen before July 4th. How do they know all this? The answer, Cy Vance, the guy who's leaving as district attorney in New York, his office leaks like, Joe Biden's skull. It's shit's coming out of Joe Biden's head nonstop and out of the office nonstop. Why are we getting all these leaks? Why are they going primarily to MSDNC and the money laundry channels? And what they appear to be setting up to try to do before these long weekends, if you can get a story coming out Thursday that Trump is going to be, his company's going to face criminal charges, then through the whole long holiday weekend, it's going to be nonstop regurgitation of this with nobody challenging it because
over hot dogs and apple pie.
All the journalists are going to be on their vacations or whatever. And it's just going to be, what is the likelihood now that Trump will have to face the music when Weisselberg turns and when the other people turn? Is this the end of Trump? How long does Trump have? When no such examination has been given to the Clinton Foundation.
Sorry, Charles, do they normally tell you the political affiliation of the district attorney? Shouldn't this be...
It's an elective post.
So you're a Democrat or a Republican? That's not the way that should work.
I think in New York,
you're just a Democrat.
Right. I think the D is redundant.
Dummy. Now, Charles, what about this? I didn't hear anything about a COVID-19 incident with Kim Jong-un, but I heard some strange reports from North Korea that he looked gaunt. And what it actually looked like to me was a guy in his 30s who realized he was a fat ass and just started losing weight.
Pretty soon we'll be flipping channels. It'll be, hi, I used to be an overstressed dictator in North Korea. Then I signed on with Jenny Craig.
Right. Jenny Kim.
And Marie Osmond will be there dancing with him.
He should just release a line of microwave food that you can buy, the Kim Jong-un diet.
That's right.
It's like, if you too could spend 6 weeks in an internment camp where you'll be put through a rigorous program of weight loss.
And just don't ask why this chicken smells a little gamey, tastes a little gamey, or wonder whatever happened to Fido.
Right. Well, Charles, I think, is there anything else that you wanted to discuss today? Some people thought we would be talking a bit more about Joe Biden, but he's really just a puppet propped up by the Clintons.
I think this or the golf club could do a better job than Joe Biden. I think we should mention that in deference, this coming Sunday, I think, is July 4th. And for a variety of reasons, we're going to give deference.
Sunday, the day off.
We're going to give deference to the veterans and the people we should honor on July 4th and not have a show this July 4th. And hope that people, instead of watching our show, will be watching their friends and family and thinking deeply, appreciating all that is good about this country. Remembering that no human being is perfect, groups of humans are by definition less perfect. Nations of humans are even more imperfect. So to expect perfection in a nation is to waste much time. But relative to what this nation could be and relative to what most nations are, this is a pretty special place. And people should begin to think more rigorously, more cogently about their own situations versus the situations that other people face around the world, and give a shout out in particular to first responders, to people in the military, to defenders, to veterans, to moms and pops, to people who've lost children. There's a lot of hardship out there. And there's a lot of greatness in this country.
And many score, and some years ago, our forefathers brought forth a more perfect nation or something like that. I'm getting it wrong.
You know the thing.
You know the thing. Yeah. At least I'm not running for president. But, Charles, people still have an opportunity to go to freedomwatchusa.org and to register for the Third Continental Congress. If you're looking for an exciting and unique way to commemorate the independence of the United States of America, you can join us at this event where we will be gathering with some of the nation's top conservative intellectual minds to discuss the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the intentions of the Founding Fathers, and explore all kinds of different things. People can go to freedomwatchusa.org and check out the Third Continental Congress.
Look at the speakers there.
The speakers are quite impressive, and it includes you, Charles.
Who?
You.
Me?
Jennifer Flowers.
What delegation am I from?
The New York one.
Uh-oh.
We got Ryan Bundy there.
Huh.
Larry, of course. Ty Clevenger. Ammon Bundy. Cliven Bundy. Charlie Woods, who's a Gold Star father. Kent Heckenlively, Judy Mikovits, Pat Boone, Joe Arpaio. It's really going to be a great event.
Guys, the next day?
Yeah. It's going to
Wayne Allen Root, he's a great guy.
I know. It should be an exciting event. So I hope that people will join us there.
Ms. Jackie Robinson, when does it end?
In the afternoon or in the evening on like 5 o'clock on Sunday or on Tuesday.
Ben Stein, wow.
Yeah, he's a personal friend of Larry's and also a conservative and an intellectual. So it should be a great event. I also want to remind our viewers, Charles, that they can watch live streams and even previous episodes of Charles Ortel is Closing In and Sunday with Charles on rumble.com/user/CS The Truth. 99 people watching us on Rumble. That's great. Thank you to the nearly 100 viewers who are with us there. Don't forget to subscribe on Rumble, and you can also watch on Crowdsource The Truth 5. You can watch on the Sunday with Charles YouTube channel. And, the best way for people to watch, it also helps keep the show going, is to become a sponsor on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. There's some really, I'm bursting to tell people about some of the developments in this amazing and ongoing lawfare scheme that has been directed at me for the past 4 years. I know there are people watching who think they're clever and who are associated with this thing. I have some explosive news, but I don't think I'm going to share it right here. I have to figure out exactly how I want to let everybody know about this, but if you become a sponsor, you're really helping quite a lot. The other thing that people can do, Charles, is if they go to crowdsourcethetruth.com, I forgot to put today's video on there, but I try to keep the live streams current on there. Yeah, Tina Forte is running for Congress. Somebody's got to take out the trash. I wonder who created that graphic for Tina. It's got a really unique kind of style to the humor. But when people visit crowdsourcethetruth.com, they can just go right past the video down to these different options for sponsoring the Counter Lawfare Fund. And each one of them is going to include at least a 1-year gift subscription to subscribestar.com. As you go up the list here and choose some of the higher valued sponsorship opportunities, you're going to get more gift subscriptions for yourself and for friends and family, and you will help me answer the question. A lot of people have said, Charles, that the courts are rigged. And that is not helping anybody understand it, that's essentially like you go to the doctor and they say, oh yeah, you're sick, and walk out of the room. And it's like, well, give me some details so we can understand this and try to solve the problem. I'm working on that. So thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great night, and we'll see everybody soon. Oh, Lee Stranahan has got a prior appointment, so there will not be a high dive episode tonight, but I'll put up some more of the legacy videos and things, and there'll be plenty of stuff for people to watch. Thanks for tuning in.